Now, the Morrison government has today unveiled plans for a national gas reservation scheme in an interventionist move designed to shore up supply and ease power price pressure. We'll go live now to Centre Alliance Senator Rex Patrick. And Senator, we know that this has been a cause very close to your heart and was part of your deal to agree to the income tax cuts. What do you make of what is being announced today?
Well, I'm very pleased that the government is making their announcement today. Energy is a significant input to our economy, and in an open market we've got to make sure our energy prices are competitive, and I think what the government is announcing today will go a long way to making sure that we remain competitive.
Did you want the trigger, the security mechanism, to be not done on the basis of having sufficient supply, but you want to see gas producers providing enough to drive down price?
There are a number of mechanisms, measures that the government is announcing today. Some of them are short-term and deal with retrospectively existing gas production projects, and things like the reservation policy that look prospectively forward for new gas supplies. The Australian Domestic Gas Security Mechanism was put in place in 2017 in response to negotiations with Centre Alliance, and it did its job in making sure that there was enough supply into the market, but the gas companies have basically maintained only just enough to ensure the mechanism didn't get triggered, but keeping their prices high. The government is now looking at ways in which to consider price in its decision-making process in relation to...
So you've had that confirmed from them? You've had that confirmed from them that they will use price as the criteria for the trigger?
Well, my understanding is they will announce the details, the exact details later today, but certainly in the discussions I had with government, that was one area that they agreed needed to be looked at, to make sure that it's not just about making sure that there's supply in the market, but enough supply to make sure that Australians get good gas prices, which in turn reduce electricity prices, because much of our electricity, particularly in South Australia, Victoria and Tasmania, the price is set by the gas price.
But the producers and the companies concerned won't be... You recognise they'll be quite angry at this development, because they will argue that they've provided the supply sufficient to give security in terms of that gas production, but now you want them to produce enough in order to put downward pressure on price. I mean, is that really the right mechanism to do that?
People must understand that this is gas that is owned by the Australian public, and we allow these companies to take it out of the ground. Of course, we don't mind the fact that they make profit, but they haven't been behaving very well. They have been, in some circumstances, supplying to the Asian market at the expense of Australian companies even getting gas offers. And we know that the pricing in Asia for our gas is lower than the price for our gas in Australia. So the market hasn't been working well, and in those circumstances it's quite appropriate for the government to intervene.
Are you satisfied the government will stick to that and codify it, that there is a price mechanism, or do you think that they might be placating you because they need you on the crossbench and they need your support by saying that they will look into it and not commit to it right now?
When I first raised this with the government, Centre Alliance sat down and had a bit of a chat with the government about our concerns, particularly in relation to electricity prices and of course, gas prices. The coalition was, in fact, thinking about this issue already, and there was a certain affinity that took place between the government and Centre Alliance, with an understanding that we needed to do something. And I have every faith in the government that they will address all of the mechanisms that were proposed, and I'm keenly awaiting the detailed announcements after Cabinet has met later today.
Let's turn our attention quickly, if we can, to the relations with China. We've seen the AUSMIN talks wrap up, obviously a big focus in terms of our engagement in a military sense, strategic sense with the United States. But the parallel to that this week, we're seeing this spiralling trade war, its impact on the markets. You and Centre Alliance have wanted an inquiry into our relationship, our bilateral relationship with China. What exactly are you worried about?
Well, China is one of our most important relationships, and we need to look at that relationship, and I don't want government to look at that alone. I've proposed back last year an inquiry looking into our engagement with Belt and Road. That was immediately after the Victorian government had signed a deal with the Chinese government, and noting that foreign relations is exclusively a federal jurisdiction. We need to look at the way in which we interact with this most important partner. We need to understand where we can benefit and where we need to be cautious. And I'd like a Senate inquiry to look into this because when we have a Senate inquiry, we're able to draw on expertise from a wide range of different players, including the Chinese government could make submissions and appear, in the United States government, academia, experts in trade that can inform the Parliament as to how best to maximise and work with the Chinese, once again being mindful of areas where caution may be required.
You thought you had this inquiry lined up, but then Labor pulled its support at the last minute. Did they tell you why they did that?
Well, last week the Labor Party were willing to support an inquiry. They, in fact, co-sponsored an inquiry motion, but at the last minute they withdrew. I've now postponed the motion. Look, my understanding is they do want to talk with government to make sure that they can get the terms of reference right. I'm still a little bit suspicious, noting that they voted against an inquiry last year. We cannot be in a situation where the Parliament censors itself because we're worried about a relationship with China. China is a big player, a mature player, and would respect us looking into the relationship to work out, as I said, how to make it better and where to be cautious.
Rex Patrick, we appreciate your time and talk to you soon.